What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is, I guess, part one of a four-part series in which I review and then ultimately rank the Grateful Dead's View from the Vault series. An interesting release in which there were 4 DVD releases of 4 shows, in the latter case, 2 shows, and then a soundtrack compilation CD release with it. I'm not really going to talk about the DVD releases. I do have them, but I don't know why, because I don't ever watch them. I think I perused each one of them quickly, only because I happen to be at all 4 of these shows. This one is from Kentucky. No, it's not from Kentucky. It's from Pittsburgh, and then the bonus track is from Kentucky. In 90, the summer tour in 90. One of them, I think it's 3 or 2, is from a show, RFK in 91. Another one's from Shoreline up in Northern California. And then the other one was from the Dylan and the Dead sets back in Anaheim, California, back when I was in high school. I watched the DVD on this. I kind of perused it, hoping I could see myself. Not a chance. This was Three River Stadium. Yeah, I wasn't close to the stage. Yeah, and there were no roving cameras capturing us. And so this is really just about the soundtrack release. It's a 3 CD set, 3 disc set. It is the complete show from July 8th, 1990, with some bonus tracks from a show 2 days earlier, July 6th in 1990. And before we get into this, the bonus tracks, once again, might provide the highlight of the entire night, interestingly enough. Though I think in this instance, the show itself might be a little more solid, the actual featured show from Pittsburgh as opposed to the Kentucky show. But the 90 tour was all for the most part, a pretty fantastic tour. But what we get is in disc 1, and I would say that this is your average show. Like, listening to it recently, I haven't listened to it in a very long time. I was like, oh, I'm glad to hear this song. I'm glad to hear this song. I'm glad to hear this song. There was a bunch of songs that I haven't heard recently because I've been listening to the Dave's Picks, which are primarily rooted in like the 70s and early 80s. So a lot of these tracks were neat to hear, but I remember back in the day that, like, when Jackarow popped up third song, I probably was not like pumping my fist and jumping up and down. Jackarow seemed to be played at every other show. But here, I really, really enjoyed the Jackarow because I haven't listened to a 90s show in a long time. So some interesting stuff on here, some interesting jams, a couple interesting song choices. But for the most part, I think it's your typical solid summer 90s show. I don't think it's a must-have. If you're one of those people who just has to get everything, you're going to enjoy it. The sound is great. Some good songs, like I said, some great playing from Jerry, a couple great jams. But it's pretty much your average 90s show, which is a good thing. It's just not, it's not breaking any records, or like, it's not like, oh my God, you have to hear this. Except there is one jam on here that maybe you do have to hear. Disc 1 is all of set 1, opens up with Touch of Grey. Immediately, I enjoyed that. I have not heard Touch of Grey in a super long time. I don't think it's been on a Dave's Picks. I don't think it was on the more mid-80 ones. But that was fun to hear. Goes into a really good Greatest Story Ever Told. Awesome opening combination. Touch into Greatest. I like that 1-2 punch. Don't remember it happening too often. Then we get the Jackarow. We get a New Minglewood Blues. We get a Road Jimmy. Road Jimmys are one of those songs that over the years I've come to love a lot more than I did back in the day. I think listening to them like in a CD or driving in a car it's much easier than when you're standing there and you've been standing there for hours and then they drop a Road Jimmy. Didn't always work. When we get to that 91 RFK release in a couple, which might be next, or maybe it's the one after that, the Road Jimmy saves the first set. Here it's just a really good Road Jimmy. We get a Mama Mexicali. We get a nice Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues. Always nice to hear. The nice slow intro. Phil doing his best to sing, changing the lyrics every so often to, arouse cheers from the audience, referencing, maybe some recreational chemistry, hitting those lines hard. And then we get a closing Let It Grow, which is a really solid Let It Grow. I'm not sure I would put it up there without a net one, which I think is one of the just perfectly composed improvisational Let It Grows. But it's up there with that. It's got really long extended jams. Jerry's really going all over the place. That dun dun dun, that whole section is absolutely fantastic. Bob's singing well. Really good, solid set ending. Let It Grow. Not the greatest first set I ever heard, but enjoyable and definitely worth checking out if you're one of those hardcore Dead fans. Disc 2 opens up with Samson and Delilah. The Samson and Delilah goes right into Eyes of the World. Maybe not right in. It's a pretty smooth transition, but it's not like you're jamming hard on a Samson and then all of a sudden you're in Eyes. But it's a nice Eyes, really well-developed Eyes. It's about a 15-minute Eyes. They're taking their time. They're exploring. Jerry's going out there and playing. We get some nice warm-up soloing before we commit to the vocals. We get some, really nice pocket solos between 1 and 2, between 2 and 3, a nice outro solo that eventually kind of winds down and we end up into estimated profit territory. They flipped the estimated in the Eyes, so we get an Eyes estimated here. Solid estimated. Closing jam is fantastic as always. It's kind of doing what estimated profits do, not being too sort of like distinguishing in what we're doing rhythmically. We're like trying to keep like a blank slate and like letting people kind of explore. I always thought of the estimated profit due to the lyrics and sort of the, the West Coast being on the beach. I always imagine it was like a song that was performed at sunset and like the sun goes down, the moon is full, and the Pacific Ocean, once you get past those waves, it's really calm. And so I always imagine this estimated profit looking out towards like heading out west and just you have this calm ocean on which they're improvising over. And yeah, there might be some squalls out there. Maybe there's a storm on the horizon. But for the most part, these are pretty calm, reflective, introspective, like thoughtful solos. Terrapin Station, fantastic. Love Terrapin Station. Jam out the end really nicely. Once they're done with the do-do-do-do-do-do, and they jam on that, they finish with that. We get some really heavy drum presence. Drums almost always follow Terrapin Station, and the drummers seem like they're coming in now, but Jerry just keeps playing, the band just keeps playing, and so we get a really awesome, what is labeled as a jam. It's a 15-minute Terrapin and a 5-minute jam. It could be a 20-minute Terrapin. I mean, they're not playing with that do-do-do-do-do-do melody, but the drum energy. We're not in drums. I mean, we're also not in Terrapin, so I guess it is a jam. But it's a really aggressive, very just rhythmic, like they're probably not going to jam on this long because the drummers are always, oh no, they are. They're still going. And it just goes on for like 4 or 5 minutes before everybody kind of fades away and the drums take over. We get a really nice Space. I think Space I enjoy much more listening to it in my car or in my home than I did there. There I was always sitting down, resting, and very conscious of it. But it was kind of a different experience. And usually if, I don't know if this is on purpose. I don't know if somebody in the band knew this, but going back to that Scoville scale I was talking about, but not in terms of heat, but in terms of legalized recreational chemistry, drums in Space always seem to occur during what might be called the peak of one's recreational chemistry journey. And so, and everything after that almost seems like you're like, I made it through and you're gliding home. Yeah, and so that's my association with Space. It's like, okay, if I can make it through this 10 minutes, I'm home free. But it's a really good Space. That's disc 2, Samson through Space. Disc 3, Space is ending. We're right into I Need a Miracle. And we get a nice little treat after I Need a Miracle. We get a Wang Dang Doodle, a nice solid Wang Dang Doodle. I think we get all the verses, nice little solos. It's not particularly like anything crazy. It's not the best Wang Dang Doodle I've ever heard, but it's a good placement. It kind of salvages that we didn't get a wheel out of Space. We didn't get a Jerry song. We're definitely going into a Jerry ballad. So we get one extra little sort of Bob treat thrown in there that is pretty nice. The Wang Dang Doodle slides right into a Black Peter. Good Black Peter. Nice intense solo at the end. Jerry's kind of exercising the last of the really intense emotional energy at the end of this solo, just kind of going off, getting kind of deep in psyche, but doing that Black Peter emotional catharsis ending solo type thing. And then we get a Throwing Stones, and then nice Throwing Stones, not one of the best. The middle jam seems like they go harder at times. And they're hitting that dun, 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 ashes, ashes, all fall down. But then I was ready for a Not Fade Away. I was listening to this in the car the other day, driving. I wasn't looking at the set list. I assumed there was a Not Fade Away. I had not checked out the set list. But no, we get a nice Turn On Your Love Light, which was a nice little treat coming after Throwing Stones. Pretty good Turn On Your Love Light. Nice energy, kind of jammed out, really good. Then, unfortunately, I've said this before, Knocking on Heaven's Door is the encore. Not a fan of anybody doing that other than Bob Dylan originally. A solid show. I remember liking it at the time. I enjoy it when I listen to it, but I don't know it's one of those if I'm not gonna listen to The Dead, if I haven't listened to The Dead in 3 or 4 months, this is not something I'm running to. Bonus tracks from Kentucky, 2 days before. We get a Standing on the Moon. Always a fan of Standing on the Moon. Give me a Standing on the Moon anytime. We get that goes into a He's Gone, back-to-back Jerry songs. And then after He's Gone, we get the He's Gone jam. We get like them going. And it's a pretty intense, high energy, Jerry just shredding jam. It's called the KY jam on here. Almost 14 minutes. They're really good at naming things. And yes, KY is Kentucky, so it could be Kentucky Jam, but they didn't call it Kentucky Jam. They called it the KY Jam, which I thought was cool. I wish they'd name all of their jams. Don't just give me jam. But starts off really intense, and there's definite Smokestack Lightning energy in there, but it's going to be an aggressive Smokestack Lightning. It's going to be an intense Smokestack Lightning, but they don't go with that. Jerry just keeps going, pedal to the metal. It's like a full-on just shredding jam. Jerry's full-on attacking. And that goes on for about maybe 4 or 5 minutes before Jerry starts definitely toying around with like a dun-dun, dun-dun, some clear other one energy, teasing that hardcore. Nobody really bites. I think Phil a couple times doesn't do any sort of runs, but drops into it like a dun-dun. They kind of jam with that idea for a while, then they go off again on other tangents. Kind of comes down for a little while. Jerry builds it back up by playing this progression that reminds me, I believe it's the same progression that's on, or quite similar to the one on Without Annette's Birdsong, but they did this quite often in Birdsong in like 89, 90, 91. It's just this Jerry starts playing these chords. Reminds me of Pink Floyd's Sheep at the end of that, where it's like, like this, like, I think it's a descending progression, but it has this like momentous build to it. But it reminds me of the end of Sheep. I don't know if it's Ascend. I can't even sing it in my head. But he flirts with that. Jerry flirts with that for a couple cycles, and the band's kind of leaning into that. And it's definite Birdsong vibes at that point, or at least that aspect of the jam. And then once they do that, they kind of go off their separate ways, and eventually the track ends, and we wind up into drums. But we don't have drums on here. The track just ends after 14 glorious improvisational moments. Yeah. The bonus tracks are fantastic. Just absolutely amazing. I honestly don't know if they're on the DVD. I'm assuming the DVD is, maybe it is on there. Yeah, I think it is. I think it might actually be on the DVD too, because they filmed the entire tour. Most of the DVD footage is just like the stuff that they're showing on the screens when you're at the show, which the Dead were really good about that. But again, I haven't watched the whole DVD. I'd have to literally stand up and dance, because that's the only thing I've ever done at a Dead show. And so maybe one day in my living room I'll do that. But I'm not going to do it today. But anyways, the soundtrack itself, really enjoyable. Some great moments, solid playing, but I can't say it's a must here. I can't say, the only thing you really, I think, should try to check out if you have the ability to, is that KY jam. It's pretty interesting. It's one of those awesome last era of the Dead improvisational moments. But yeah, it's ranked number 1 so far out of these 4, so I'm not going to put that on the screen because that would be a waste of my time. But anyways, yeah, If you like to watch shows on DVD, I mean, it's pretty, the soundtrack sounds good. They have some good shots. There are some great performances. But yeah, that's all. I just wanted to talk about this because I listened to Dave's Picks 50 and I was excited to listen to more Dead, so I thought I would tackle this. But that's it. I'm rambling. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. And peace. Talk to you later.